Hey there, welcome to FFBC for Kids. This is our Back to Sunday School series. Let's get started.
And now, a story from the Old Testament. Just after Samuel anointed David
The Lord is my shepherd.
as the future king
Checkmate!
of Israel,
The chosen
the
ones.
Philistines
Grrr.
gathered their army together to attack Israel.
The chosen ones.
So King
Checkmate!
Saul
Tall, tan, and handsome.
gathered the army of Israel
The chosen
together,
ones.
and they went to meet the Philistines.
Grrr.
The two armies formed up on opposite sides of a valley and glared at each other, preparing for battle. The moment was tense. Then the ground shook. The
The
Israelites
chosen ones.
looked at each other in confusion, but the Philistines
Grrr.
just smiled and sneered at them. The ground shook again, and again, and again. And slowly a massive man emerged from the Philistine
Grrr.
army to stand before Israel.
The chosen ones.
His name was Goliath,
Who will fight
and
me?
he was huge. Goliath
Who will fight me?
stood towering over the
The
Israelites
chosen
and
ones.
challenged them to send their best soldier to come and fight him. Whoever won the fight, their nation would take the other as slaves. The
The
Israelites
chosen
all were
ones.
terrified. No one would fight Goliath.
Who will fight
They
me?
each came up with an excuse why they wouldn't do it. Like the guy who said,
Yeah, I got stung on the whip by a bee, so I can't do that right now.
really, they were all just afraid of Goliath.
Who will fight
And this
me?
went on for quite some time. For 40 days, Goliath
Who will fight
came
me?
forward to challenge
The
Israel.
chosen
And
ones.
for 40 days, no one would fight him. Now 3 of Jesse's
You want a new king?
sons, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, were part of King
Checkmate!
Saul's
Tall, tan, and handsome.
army. But the other 5 sons were at home tending Jesse's
You want a new king?
flocks. One day, Jesse
You want a new king?
sent
The
David
Lord is my shepherd.
to bring some food to his brothers. David
The Lord is my shepherd.
arrived at the battlefield just in time to hear Goliath's
Who will fight me?
taunts, and he was shocked. Why had no one gone to defeat Goliath
Who will
yet?
fight me?
The
David
Lord is my shepherd.
wondered. He said to the other soldiers,
Who is this Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?
King
Checkmate!
Saul
Tall, tan, and
heard
handsome.
what
The
David
Lord is my
was
shepherd.
saying and sent for him.
The
David
Lord is my
said,
shepherd. I will go and fight the Philistine. God will deliver me from his hand.
so Saul
Tall, tan, and
gave
handsome. The
David
Lord is my
his
shepherd.
armor to wear for the fight. But
The
David
Lord is my
did
shepherd.
not want it because he hadn't worn it before and wasn't used to it. Instead,
The
David
Lord is my
went
shepherd.
to a stream and picked 5 smooth stones, took his staff and his sling, and went out to face Goliath.
Who will fight me?
When Goliath
Who will
saw
fight me?
David,
The Lord is my
he
shepherd.
laughed at him and cursed him and told him he would kill him easily. But
The
David
Lord is my shepherd.
said,
You come at me with a sword and a spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, that all the world may know that there is a God in Israel.
Well, Goliath
Well, fight
charged
me.
at David,
The Lord is my
and
shepherd.
David
The Lord is my
ran
shepherd.
towards him. As he did, he pulled a stone out of his bag and slung it with his sling. He whipped it towards Goliath
Oh, well, fight
and struck
me.
him in the forehead. Goliath
Oh, well,
fell
fight
to the
me.
ground, dead. When the Philistines
Grr.
saw Goliath
Oh, well, fight
dead,
me.
they turned and ran, and the Israelite army plundered their camp. And King
Checkmate!
Saul
I'll
took
tame and
David
paint. The Lord is my
into
shepherd.
his service and made him a general over the Israelite
The chosen ones.
army. The end.
Think about it with Pastor Daniel.
So today's story was one of the most famous stories in all of the Bible. David, the little shepherd guy with just 5 stones and a sling, defeats Goliath, a giant of a man in full armor. It's a crazy, awesome, cool story, and one of the ones that's the most famous. People who don't even know about the Bible usually know the story of David and Goliath. And it's David's faith in God and his boldness and courage and knowledge that God is with him that gives him the strength to go and face even a giant when all the other people in Israel wouldn't do so. David knew God was with him and would give him the victory, and so he wasn't afraid to go up against a career soldier who was way taller than him, way stronger than him, who had more fighting experience than him. David said, if he's coming up against God, well, I've got God on my side and nothing's gonna stop me. And it's just the first of many, many victories in David's life, as we'll see as we read the rest of the book of Samuel. Now, often when people talk about this story and they ask, how can it apply to our lives? What can we learn for us, for how we should live in light of David defeating Goliath? They often say, well, all of life's problems, the things that are challenging for you, those are your Goliath. Those are your giant things that you're afraid of. But you need to be like David, and you can pick up your stones of faith and you can throw them at the enemy, and God will give you the victory to conquer your Goliaths. And that's true. We do need to have faith in God, and God does give us victory over the big challenging things in our life. But I think there's a different way that we probably should think about it that's a little bit better. Because the character in the story today that we're actually most like is the helpless, scared, cowardly Israelites. The biggest problems in our lives are sin, death, and suffering. And those are things that we actually can't do anything about. We can't get rid of our sin. Once we're guilty before God, no matter how many good things we do, we're still guilty. We can't get rid of our guilt and become innocent again. We can't get rid of death. Scientists have tried for years and years to make our lives longer and to make it so that we don't age as much and we don't die as soon, but everybody does die someday. We can't stop that from happening. And we can't even control our sufferings. The hard things that we face on this earth are things that, we can't really stop from happening most of the time. They happen to us and they're hard and they're difficult, but there's not much we can do. So sin, death, and suffering are kind of like our Goliaths. They're the big, scary things in our life that we can't do anything about. Just like the Israelites had a big, scary, giant man in front of them that they didn't feel like they could do anything about. The Israelites needed a hero to come and save them from Goliath, and you and I need a hero to come and save us from our sin and death and suffering. Now, David was the man that God used to save Israel from Goliath, and Jesus is the man that God used to save us from our sin, death, and suffering. Because Jesus already defeated the Goliaths that you and I will face. He defeated sin on the cross when he took our place, when he took our punishment, so that sin could no longer have any power over us. He defeated death once and for all in his resurrection from the dead. We will still die one day, but for those who believe in Jesus, we know we'll also be resurrected from the dead for eternal life with God. And he defeated sufferings and hardships by going through those things and by making a way that those things can actually draw us closer to God by being more like Jesus. And that's actually the best thing for us. So we don't need to be a David to defeat our life's Goliaths, because Jesus already did. We need to have faith and trust in Jesus. So when our life gets really hard and it feels like there's a giant 9-foot-tall mountain soldier man problem in front of us, and there's just something that we're scared of, that we don't think we can get through, well, we can remember that Jesus has already defeated all the things in our life. He is with you and me, and so we can pray and ask him for faith and trust and his help to make it through all the tough things in our life, knowing that he's on our side, that he's already conquered all these things. Even our sufferings can draw us closer to God when we go through them with prayer, with faith, with trust in God. And sin and death, well, we know that those were already defeated on the cross and in the grave, and so we don't have to worry about them anymore. We don't have to be afraid of them anymore. The story of David and Goliath is an awesome story. It's a cool story. It shows us how God used David to save the Israelites from a big problem. And I hope that today you and I can remember that we had an even bigger problem than just a giant soldier in front of us, and that Jesus has already saved us from that Goliath, from the Goliaths of sin and death and suffering. Now all we have to do is have faith in him and live in obedience to his word. Thanks for watching FFBC for Kids. We'll see you next week when we talk about David's best friend in the whole world. We've already met him. His name is Jonathan. Hope to see you then. Have a good week. Bye.